When Dad asked if the money helped at our family dinner last night, my heart stopped. What money? For 2 years, mysterious envelopes had appeared under my dorm room door with cash and sweet notes. I thought a stranger was helping me through college. I called them my guardian angel and spent countless hours wondering who cared about me so much. But Dad's question changed everything. The way Mom's face went white when I asked what money told me this wasn't about some random stranger at all, who had really been slipping those envelopes under my door. And what secret had my parents been hiding from me for 2 whole years? I'm sitting at our old wooden table, the same one where I've eaten thousands of meals since I was little. The scratches tell stories. There's the mark from when I tried to carve my name with a butter knife at age 7, and the dark ring where Dad always sets his coffee cup without using a coaster. Tonight feels different, though. Mom brought out the good plates, the ones with tiny blue flowers that she keeps wrapped in tissue paper. She only uses them when she's trying to make something feel special. Christmas dinner. My birthday, the night before I left for college. These are pretty, I say, running my finger along the gold rim. I thought we should use them more, Mom says, but her voice sounds nervous. She's been acting weird all week, asking me strange questions about school and money and whether I'm happy. Dad's in the kitchen, making his famous spaghetti sauce. He's been stirring it for an hour, humming that old song he always hums when he's thinking about something. The whole house smells like garlic and tomatoes and home. Dinner's ready, Dad calls out, carrying the big pot to the table. Steam rises from the pasta like little clouds. We sit down like we always do. Mom across from me, Dad at the head of the table. But something feels off. They keep looking at each other with those married people looks, the kind where they're having a whole conversation without saying any words. So Dad says, twirling his fork in the spaghetti, "How's school going?" "Really going?" "It's good," I say, because that's what I always say, even when it's not good. Even when I'm stressed about money and grades and trying to figure out what I want to do with my life. "And you're managing okay with everything?" Mom asks, cutting her meatball into tiny pieces like she always does. I nod, wondering why they're asking the same questions they asked last week. And the week before that, Dad clears his throat. "Mia," he says, and his voice has that serious tone he uses when he wants to talk about important things. "Has the money been helping with college?" I know things have been tight. I stop chewing. The pasta in my mouth suddenly tastes like cardboard. My fork feels heavy in my hand. "What money?" I ask, looking straight at him. The words come out quiet, but they might as well be a shout. The whole room goes silent, except for the sound of the grandfather clock ticking in the hallway. Dad's face goes white. Not pale, but actually white, like someone just told him terrible news. His fork slips from his fingers and clatters against the fancy plate, making a sound that seems too loud in the quiet kitchen. Mom's hand freezes halfway to her mouth. She sets down her fork very carefully, like she's afraid it might break. "What money, Dad?" I ask again, my voice getting stronger. He looks at Mom with panic in his eyes. She looks back at him, and I can see something passing between them. Fear, maybe, or guilt. Definitely guilt. That's when I turn to look at Mom, really look at her, and I see something in her face that makes my heart start racing. Her eyes are wide and scared, but there's something else there too. Something that looks like she's been caught doing something she wasn't supposed to be doing. The silence stretches between us like a thick rope ready to snap. I can hear my own heartbeat in my ears. I can hear the sauce still bubbling on the stove. I can hear the neighbor's dog barking 3 houses down, but nobody says anything. "I don't understand," I say, even though part of me is starting to understand. Part of me is remembering things, strange things, mysterious things that happened over the past 2 years. Things I never questioned because I was so grateful for them. Dad opens his mouth, then closes it again. He looks like a fish out of water, gasping for air he can't find. Mom's eyes are filling with tears now. Not sad tears, but the kind you get when you're overwhelmed and don't know what to do next. "Mia," she starts to say, but then stops. I look back and forth between them, my parents, the 2 people who raised me and love me and are now sitting here looking like they just got caught stealing something. "What money?" I whisper one more time. The question hangs in the air like smoke, changing everything it touches. Because somehow I already know that whatever they're about to tell me is going to change my whole world. The fancy plates with the blue flowers suddenly don't seem so special anymore. They seem like props in a play, like Mom was trying to make this moment feel important, because she knew it would be. I wait for one of them to answer, but they just stare at each other with those guilty, scared expressions. And that's when I know for sure that my life is about to become completely different. But to understand why Dad's question hit me like a punch to the stomach, I need to tell you about what happened 3 months ago, about the day I found the first envelope. It was a Tuesday in February, and I was having the worst week of my life. College was nothing like I thought it would be. Sure, the classes were hard, but that wasn't the real problem. The real problem was money. Every day felt like a math problem I couldn't solve. If I bought groceries, I couldn't afford my textbooks. If I bought textbooks, I'd have to eat ramen noodles for 2 weeks straight. If I paid my phone bill, I wouldn't have gas money to get to my job at the campus bookstore. I was sitting on my bed in my tiny dorm room, surrounded by papers and bills, and a calculator that kept showing me numbers I didn't want to see. My organic chemistry book cost $300. $300! That was more than I made in a whole week at my job. I started crying right there, ugly crying with my face in my hands. I felt so stupid and helpless. Everyone else seemed to have figured out how to be a college student, but I was drowning. That's when I heard something slide under my door. At first, I thought it was just another flyer for pizza delivery or campus activities. Students were always shoving stuff under doors. But when I looked closer, I saw it was a plain white envelope with my name written on it in neat handwriting. My hands were shaking as I opened it. Inside was $200 in cash, 4 $50 bills, crisp and new like they came straight from the bank. And there was a note written on simple white paper in the same neat handwriting. For textbooks, you're doing great. Keep going. No signature, no return address, just kindness from a complete stranger. I stared at the money for a long time, not believing it was real. Then I ran to the mirror to make sure I wasn't dreaming. Nope, still me, still broke, still holding $200 that had appeared like magic. I ran downstairs to the common room where my roommate Sarah was watching TV. Look, I shouted, waving the money and note in the air. Look what someone left for me. Sarah paused her show and looked at me like I was crazy. What do you mean someone left it? Under my door, just now. $200 and this note. She read the note and counted the money. Mia, this is amazing. Who do you think it's from? I have no idea, I said, but I was grinning so big my face hurt. Maybe another student? Or a teacher who noticed I was struggling? Or maybe you have a secret admirer, Sarah said with a grin. That weekend, I drove home to show Mom and Dad. I burst through the front door like I was announcing I'd won the lottery. You'll never believe what happened, I said, running into the kitchen where they were having coffee. I told them the whole story, showing them the money and the note. I was so excited, talking fast and waving my hands around. Mom barely looked up from her magazine. How nice, she said in that distracted voice she uses when she's reading and not really listening. I felt a little hurt that she wasn't more excited for me. This was the most amazing thing that had ever happened to me, and she acted like I was telling her about the weather. Dad was different, though. He set down his coffee cup and really looked at the note. He read it twice, then smiled and patted my shoulder. There are good people in the world, kiddo, he said. Someone wanted to help you succeed. But who? I asked. Who would do something like this? Dad shrugged. Does it matter? Sometimes kindness comes from unexpected places. I spent the rest of that weekend trying to figure out who my mysterious helper could be. I made lists of possibilities, teachers, neighbors, maybe even my boss at the bookstore who had noticed how worried I looked all the time. But I never thought to look closer at the two people sitting right there at the kitchen table. I never thought to compare that neat handwriting to Mom's grocery lists or Dad's birthday cards. I was too busy feeling grateful to a stranger to notice the love that was right in front of me. I took the money back to school and bought my textbooks. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe. Someone out there cared about me enough to help, even though they didn't know me. I had no idea that the person I should have been thanking was the same person who made me pancakes every Sunday morning and always asked if I was eating enough vegetables. But I would find out soon enough. 3 months later, at a family dinner with fancy plates and nervous parents, I would finally learn the truth. The envelopes kept coming after that first one. Every few weeks, right when things got really hard and I was starting to panic about money, another one would appear under my door like a gift from heaven. It was never random timing. It was always exactly when I needed help the most. When my car started making that scary grinding noise and I was terrified it would break down, an envelope appeared with enough money to get it fixed. The note said, "Transportation is important for your future." When I ran out of groceries and was living on crackers and peanut butter, I found an envelope with cash and a note that read, "Eat something good tonight." When my phone was about to get shut off because I couldn't pay the bill, there was money with a message saying, "Stay connected to the people who love you." Each envelope came with a different note, but they all felt the same, warm and caring, like hugs made out of words. I started looking forward to these mysterious gifts more than anything else in my life. They felt like proof that the universe was looking out for me. I'd tell my friends about my guardian angel, and they'd get so excited. "You're like Cinderella," my roommate Sarah would say. "You have a fairy godmother." "More like a fairy godparent," my friend Jake would joke. Someone with deep pockets and a big heart. But the notes felt personal, like whoever was writing them really knew me. They knew exactly when I needed help and exactly how much I needed. They knew my car was making weird noises before I told anyone. They knew I'd been eating the same sad sandwich for lunch every day. I started studying the handwriting like I was a detective. The letters were neat and careful, written by someone who took their time. The paper was always plain white, nothing fancy. The envelopes were the kind you could buy at any store. I'd hold each note up to the light, looking for clues. I'd smell the paper, wondering if I could figure out what kind of house it came from. I'd stare at the words until my eyes hurt, trying to recognize something familiar. "Your guardian angel is really good at this mystery thing," Sarah said one day as we examined the latest note together. "They know me so well," I said, reading the message again. "Look at this. Don't worry so much about the future. You're exactly where you need to be." How did they know I was stressed about picking a major? "Maybe they're watching you," Sarah said, then quickly added, "in a good way, like maybe they work on campus and see you around." That made sense to me. Maybe it was Professor Martinez, who always asked how I was doing after chemistry class. Maybe it was Mrs. Chen from the library, who smiled at me whenever I came in looking stressed. Maybe it was someone from the financial aid office who had access to my records and knew I was struggling. The mystery became part of my daily routine. Every morning, I'd check under my door with excitement, wondering if today would be one of those special days. When an envelope appeared, it was like Christmas morning. When it didn't, I'd feel a little disappointed, but also hopeful. Maybe tomorrow. I kept all the notes in a special box under my bed. Sometimes when I was having a really hard day, I'd take them out and read them all again. They made me feel less alone, like someone was watching over me and really cared about my happiness. The amounts were always perfect, too. Never too much that I'd feel weird about taking it, but always exactly enough to solve whatever problem I was facing. $50 for groceries, $120 for the car repair, $60 for the phone bill. How did this person know the exact cost of things? How did they know I needed exactly $40 for new textbooks or $85 to fix my laptop? Looking back now, I realized the timing should have been my biggest clue. The envelopes always appeared right after I'd had a really stressful phone call home, right after I'd mentioned to Mom and Dad that something was wrong. "My car's making a weird noise," I'd tell them on Sunday. Tuesday morning, there would be money for car repairs. "I can't afford the chemistry textbook," I'd complain during our weekly call. 3 days later, an envelope with textbook money would slide under my door. But I was 18 and overwhelmed and grateful. I didn't have time to connect the dots. I was too busy being amazed by the kindness of my mysterious helper to realize they weren't mysterious at all. They were the two people who had been taking care of me my whole life, the ones who knew exactly when I was worried because they could hear it in my voice during our phone calls home. They were Mom and Dad, loving me in secret, helping me from the shadows while letting me believe in magic. But I wouldn't figure that out for months. For now, I was just a college student with the best guardian angel in the world. Someone who cared about me enough to make sure I never had to choose between eating and learning. Looking back now, I realized there were clues everywhere. Big, obvious clues that I completely missed because I was too grateful and amazed to think clearly. Like how Mom always seemed to know exactly when the envelopes arrived, even though I never told her the timing. I'd call home on Wednesday, excited about finding money for my chemistry book. "Mom, you won't believe what happened. My guardian angel left me another envelope." "Oh, how wonderful," she'd say, but her voice would sound different. Happy, but also something else. Something I couldn't name back then. Then Dad would get on the phone. "How's school going, honey?" he'd ask, right after I just told them about getting help with textbooks. "Did you get that car looked at?" Mom would wonder aloud on Sunday, exactly 3 days after I'd received money for car repairs. "You eating okay? Getting enough sleep? Not worrying too much about money, I hope?" Dad would add during our next conversation. At the time, I thought they were just being caring parents. Now I see they were checking on their secret mission, making sure their help was actually helping. There was also the way they never seemed surprised by my good luck. When I'd burst into the house during weekend visits, excited about another envelope, they'd nod and smile like it was the most natural thing in the world. "Your guardian angel is really looking out for you," Mom would say, folding laundry or cooking dinner. "Someone upstairs likes you," Dad would add with a wink.
They weren't lying exactly. They were my guardian angels. Someone upstairs did like me.
Mom and Dad, up in their bedroom, probably planning their next envelope while I slept downstairs on the couch. But they let me believe in magic instead of recognizing their love. The strangest thing was how the help always matched our family's money situation perfectly. When Dad got overtime at the factory, my envelopes had a little extra cash. When Mom's hours got cut at the diner, the amounts got smaller, but they still came. It was like my mysterious helper was connected to my parents' paychecks, rising and falling with their income. But I was 18 and stressed about grades and friendships and figuring out who I wanted to be. I didn't have time to solve mysteries. I was just grateful. There were other signs too, like how Mom would ask about my grocery situation right before I'd find food money, or how Dad would mention car maintenance the day before an envelope with repair money would appear. "You keeping up with oil changes?" Dad asked during one phone call. "I can't afford to get it serviced," I admitted. "Well, maybe something will work out," he said. 2 days later, there was an envelope with enough money for an oil change and a note that said, "Take care of your car, and it will take care of you." How did my guardian angel know about that conversation? How did they know I needed exactly $45 for car service? The answer was sitting right there at our kitchen table every Sunday when I came home. But I was too busy looking for strangers to notice the people who had been taking care of me my whole life. I also should have paid attention to how tired Mom and Dad looked sometimes. How they'd fall asleep on the couch while watching TV. How they'd yawn a lot and drink extra coffee. "Long week?" I'd ask. "Just busy," Dad would say, rubbing his eyes. "The diner's been crazy," Mom would add, stretching her back like it hurt. I thought they were just getting older, working their regular jobs and dealing with regular stress. I never imagined they were working extra hours, extra shifts, extra jobs just to put money in those envelopes. They were literally exhausting themselves to help me, and I never even noticed. There was one weekend when I came home and found them both asleep on the living room couch at 3 in the afternoon. They were still wearing their work clothes, like they'd sat down for just a minute and couldn't keep their eyes open. I covered them with a blanket and went to my room, thinking it was sweet that they were napping together. I never wondered why they were so tired that they couldn't even make it to their own bed. Now I know they'd probably been working since 5 in the morning, doing double shifts to pay for my next envelope. They were probably so exhausted they couldn't move another step. But back then, I was just their daughter who thought she had a magical guardian angel watching over her. I was too busy being grateful to mysterious strangers to see the sacrifice happening right in front of me. I should have asked more questions. I should have wondered why my help always came at exactly the right time. I should have noticed the connection between my phone calls home and the envelopes under my door. But maybe that's what love looks like sometimes. Parents working so hard to help their child that the child never even realizes they need help. Maybe the best kind of love is invisible, the kind that works behind the scenes to make everything seem okay. If I had figured it out earlier, everything would have been different. I would have hugged them and cried and insisted they stop working so hard. I would have gotten a second job or taken out more loans or found another way. But they didn't want me to know because they knew I'd try to stop them. They knew I was too proud to accept help directly, too independent to let them sacrifice for me. So they became my guardian angels instead, loving me in secret, helping me from the shadows while I believed in magic. My second year of college was harder than my first. The classes were tougher. My job at the bookstore paid barely anything, and my friends all seemed to have more money than me. I'd watch them go out for dinner while I stayed home with another packet of instant noodles. Some nights, I'd sit in my dorm room listening to them laugh down the hall as they got ready to go to the movies or out for pizza. I'd pretend I had homework to do, but really, I just couldn't afford to join them. $20 for a movie and snacks might as well have been $200. That's when the envelopes started including more than just money. They began coming with little extras that made my heart feel full instead of just my wallet. The first surprise came on a particularly bad Tuesday. I'd been living on peanut butter sandwiches for 5 days straight because I'd spent my grocery money on a required textbook. I was starting to feel dizzy and tired all the time. Under my door, I found an envelope with grocery money and something else. A gift card to the campus market with a note that said, "Vegetables are important too. Your body needs good fuel to help your brain work." How did this person know I wasn't eating right? How did they know I needed someone to remind me to take care of myself? 2 weeks later, I was stressed about midterm exams and hadn't left my room, except for classes in 3 days. That's when I found movie tickets with a message saying, "Take a break and have fun. Your mind needs rest too." Sarah found me crying over those tickets. "What's wrong?" she asked, sitting on my bed. "They're just so thoughtful," I sobbed. "Whoever this is, they really care about me. They want me to be happy, not just survive." The gifts kept getting more personal. When I mentioned to Mom during our Sunday phone call that I'd been feeling homesick, an envelope appeared 3 days later with my favorite cookies, the ones from the bakery in our hometown, 2 hours away. "How did they get these?" I asked Sarah, holding up the familiar blue box. "Maybe they drove to your hometown," she suggested. "Or maybe they ordered them online," but that wasn't possible. These cookies were from Miller's Bakery, a tiny family place that didn't have a website or delivery. Someone had to physically go there and buy them. Inside the box was a note. "Comfort food for a hard week. Remember, you're loved even when you're far from home." I called Mom that night, crying. "Someone bought me cookies from Miller's," I told her through my tears. "My favorite ones. From home." There was a long pause on the other end of the phone. When Mom spoke again, her voice sounded thick and emotional. That's really something," she said. "Someone must care about you very much." "But who would drive all the way to Miller's just for me?" I asked. "Who even knows those are my favorite cookies?" "Maybe someone who pays attention," Mom said softly. "Someone who listens when you talk about the things you miss." I should have heard the meaning in her voice. I should have realized that only someone who had known me, my whole life, would remember how those cookies always made me feel better when I was sad. But I was too busy feeling grateful to this mysterious person who seemed to know everything about me, my favorite treats, my stress levels, even when I needed to be reminded to have fun. The care packages started coming once a month after that. They always contained exactly what I needed, even things I didn't know I needed. When I got sick with a bad cold, an envelope appeared with soup mix, tea bags, honey, and throat lozenges. The note said, "Rest and take care of yourself. You can't pour from an empty cup." When my laptop charger broke and I was panicking about not being able to work on my papers, I found a replacement charger with a note that read, "Technology should help you succeed, not stress you out." How did they know my charger was broken? I hadn't told anyone except my roommate, and I'd literally just figured it out that morning. Each gift felt like a hug from someone who really knew me. Someone who paid attention to the little things that mattered. Someone who wanted me to be not just okay, but actually happy and healthy. I started keeping all the notes in a special wooden box that used to hold my grandmother's jewelry. Reading them became my favorite thing to do when I felt lonely or overwhelmed. They reminded me that somewhere out there, someone was thinking about me and rooting for me. My friends thought it was the most romantic thing ever. "You have a secret admirer," my friend Jake would tease. "This is like something out of a movie." But the notes didn't feel romantic. They felt parental. They felt like the kind of love that worries about whether you're eating vegetables and getting enough sleep. The kind of love that remembers your favorite cookies and knows when you need to be reminded to have fun. They felt like home. I'd lie in bed at night, wondering who cared about me this much. Who else in my life paid such close attention to my needs? Who else would spend their own money and time to make sure I was not just surviving, but thriving? The answer was making me breakfast every morning when I was home, and always asking about my day every evening when I called. The answer was in the way Dad would slip me $20 for gas, and how Mom would pack extra snacks whenever I visited. But sometimes the most obvious truths are the hardest to see, especially when they're wrapped in such beautiful mystery. All I knew was that someone loved me enough to drive 2 hours to buy my favorite cookies. Someone loved me enough to notice when I was sad and lonely and needed comfort food. That kind of love doesn't come from strangers. It comes from people who have been loving you since before you were born, who know every detail of what makes you happy because they've been paying attention your whole life. But I wouldn't realize that for another few months. For now, I was just a college student who felt incredibly lucky to have the most thoughtful guardian angel in the world. I almost figured it out in November of my sophomore year. Almost. If I had been just a little more observant, a little less distracted, everything would have been different. I was home for Thanksgiving break, helping Mom cook in our tiny kitchen. The whole house smelled like turkey and stuffing and the pumpkin pie Mom had been working on since dawn. Dad was in the living room, watching football and yelling at the TV like the players could hear him. "Can you grab the shopping list from the counter?" Mom asked, her hands covered in flour from making biscuits. "I want to make sure we have everything for tomorrow." I picked up the piece of paper and glanced at it while she worked. Her handwriting was neat and careful, just like always. She'd written out everything we needed in her perfect print letters. Cranberry sauce, heavy cream, green beans, butter, coffee. My heart stopped. I stared at those letters, and something clicked in my brain like a puzzle piece falling into place. The writing looked familiar, very familiar. "Mom," I said slowly, holding up the list, "your handwriting looks like..." I trailed off, trying to remember where I'd seen this exact style before. The careful way she made her letter C. The little loop at the top of her B. The way her words slanted just slightly to the right. It looked exactly like the handwriting on all those notes, the ones from my guardian angel. My hands started shaking as I held the grocery list. Could it be? Was it possible that Mom had been writing those notes all along? But then Dad walked into the kitchen, asking if we needed help with the turkey, and the moment got interrupted. "Like what, sweetie?" Mom asked, but she was already moving toward the stove, not really waiting for an answer. "Nothing," I mumbled, but my mind was racing. I watched as Mom crumpled up the grocery list and threw it in the trash can. She did it quickly, like she didn't want me looking at it anymore. That should have been my second clue. I almost ran to my room right then. I almost grabbed the box of notes from under my bed and brought them downstairs to compare. I almost held them up next to the birthday cards Mom had written me over the years. But then the timer went off for the turkey, and Mom started bustling around, checking temperatures and stirring gravy. Dad asked me to help him set up the card table for extra seating. My cousin Emma called to say she was running late. The house filled up with family and noise and the chaos of Thanksgiving. There were dishes to wash and stories to catch up on, and my little nephew who wanted me to read him books. By the time everything calmed down, I'd forgotten about the grocery list. The moment had passed, swept away by cranberry sauce and football games and too much pie. If I had figured it out then, everything would have been different. I would have confronted Mom right there in the kitchen. I would have asked her directly if she was my guardian angel. She probably would have started crying and confessed everything. Dad would have come in, wondering what was wrong, and then he'd confess too. I would have learned about all their extra jobs, all their sacrifice, all the love they'd been pouring into those envelopes. I would have hugged them both and cried happy tears. I would have thanked them for their incredible kindness. I would have told them they were the best parents in the world and begged them to stop working so hard for me. But I didn't figure it out. The secret stayed safe for 6 more months. Later that weekend, as I was packing to go back to school, I found myself thinking about handwriting again. Something was bothering me, like a word I couldn't remember that was right on the tip of my tongue. I pulled out the box of notes and looked at them again. The writing was so neat, So careful. It reminded me of something. Ready to head back? Dad asked, poking his head into my room. Yeah, just finishing up, I said, quickly putting the notes away. Drive safe, he said. And remember, if you need anything, I know, I said, giving him a hug. You and Mom are the best. He hugged me back, and I could have sworn I felt him shake a little, like he was holding back tears. We love you, kiddo, he said into my hair. More than you know. At the time, I thought he was just being sentimental because I was leaving. Now I realize he was thinking about all the envelopes, all the notes, all the ways they'd been taking care of me without me knowing. He was thinking about how much they loved me, and how they'd found a way to show it that let me stay independent and proud. I drove back to school that Sunday, completely unaware that I'd come within minutes of solving the mystery. Completely unaware that the answer to all my questions had been standing right there in the kitchen, making turkey and gravy and trying not to cry. The grocery list was buried in the trash, along with my chance to figure everything out early. Mom's handwriting was hidden away, safe from my curious eyes for another 6 months. But the truth has a way of coming out eventually. No secret can stay hidden forever, especially one built on so much love. The next envelope would arrive in 3 days, with money for my textbooks and a note that said, "Knowledge is the best gift you can give yourself." I'd be grateful to my mysterious guardian angel once again, never knowing I should have been grateful to the woman who taught me how to write my own name, who had been perfecting that same careful handwriting for 20 years while writing me birthday cards and packing my lunch with little notes inside. The truth was so close I could have reached out and touched it. But sometimes the most important discoveries have to wait for exactly the right moment. And that moment was still 6 months away, at a family dinner with fancy plates and a father's innocent question that would change everything. The final envelope came 3 days before that dinner. I was stressed about final exams and worried about summer rent. Spring semester was almost over, and I was exhausted from studying and working and trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. I'd been eating cereal for dinner and walking everywhere to save on gas. My bank account had exactly $37 in it, and summer rent was due in 2 weeks. I was starting to panic about how I'd survive without my campus job. And my friends were all making plans for summer break. Some were going home to work at their parents' businesses. Others had fancy internships lined up. A few were taking fun trips to Europe or the beach. I was going to spend my summer in my tiny apartment, working at whatever job I could find, trying to save enough money for next year's tuition. "What are your summer plans?" my friend Jake asked as we walked across campus. "Working," I said, trying to sound cheerful about it. "That's cool. Where?" "Wherever will hire me," I admitted. "Maybe the grocery store, maybe babysitting, maybe cleaning houses." Jake looked at me with sympathy. He knew I was always worried about money, but he didn't know how worried. Nobody did, except my guardian angel, who somehow always knew exactly when I needed help. That Thursday morning, I woke up feeling hopeless. Finals started in 2 days, and I couldn't focus on studying because I was too stressed about rent money. I kept doing math in my head, trying to figure out how to make $37 stretch into summer survival. That's when I saw it. An envelope under my door, thicker than usual. My hands were shaking as I opened it. Inside was more money than I'd ever seen in one envelope. Enough to cover my rent for the whole summer, plus extra for groceries and gas. But it was the notes that made me start crying. It was longer than any of the others, written in that same careful handwriting I'd come to love. "You've worked so hard and come so far. We're proud of you beyond words. This is the last envelope because you don't need us anymore. You're strong enough to fly on your own now. Remember that you are loved more than you know. Your guardian angel." I read it 3 times before the words really sank in. The last envelope. They were saying goodbye. I sat on my bed and sobbed. Not sad tears exactly, but overwhelmed tears, grateful tears. For 2 years, this mysterious person had taken care of me like family. Better than family, because they asked for nothing in return. They just loved me and wanted me to succeed. And now they were letting me go. I held that note against my chest and cried for 20 minutes. Then I called Mom from my dorm room, still sniffling. "Someone's been helping me," I told her through my tears. "For 2 whole years, they've been taking care of me, and now they're saying goodbye." There was a long pause on the other end of the phone. When Mom spoke, her voice sounded strange, thick and emotional, like she was trying not to cry too. "Oh, honey," she said. That's wonderful, that someone cared about you so much. I wish I knew who it was," I said, wiping my nose with my sleeve. "I wish I could thank them properly. They saved me, Mom. They made it possible for me to stay in school and focus on learning instead of just surviving." Another pause. I could hear Mom breathing on the other end, like she was trying to decide what to say. "They sound like a very special person," she finally said. "They are. They really are. They knew exactly what I needed and exactly when I needed it. It's like they could read my mind." "Maybe," Mom said softly. "They just paid very close attention. But who would do that? Who would care about me enough to watch over me for 2 years without asking for anything back?" There was the longest pause yet. I could hear Dad in the background, asking Mom something I couldn't make out. "Maybe someday you will," Mom said, her voice barely a whisper.
Will what?
"Find out who it was. Maybe someday you'll know who loved you enough to do all that." I should have heard the meaning in her voice. I should have recognized the emotion behind her words. I should have asked her why she sounded like she was crying. But I was too busy feeling grateful to my anonymous guardian angel to realize I was talking to her. "I hope so," I said. "I really hope so. I just want to hug them and tell them how much it all meant to me." "I'm sure they know," Mom said. "I'm sure they can see how well you're doing, and that's all the thanks they need." We talked for a few more minutes about finals and summer plans. Mom asked if I needed anything, if I was eating enough, if I was taking care of myself, the same questions she always asked, the same worry she always showed. I told her I was fine, that my guardian angel had taken care of everything one last time. I told her I felt ready to handle things on my own now. "Good," she said. "That's good, honey. You're stronger than you know." After we hung up, I sat there holding the last note, reading it over and over. The person who wrote it knew me so well. They knew I'd been worried about summer expenses. They knew I'd been doubting myself. They knew exactly what to say to make me feel loved and confident. "You're strong enough to fly on your own now." They were right. I was strong enough, but only because they'd been there to catch me whenever I fell. 3 days later, I'd be sitting at that dinner table, and Dad would ask his innocent question about money. 3 days later, the beautiful mystery would be solved, and I'd finally know who had been loving me in secret all along. But for now, I was just a college student, holding the last gift from her guardian angel, feeling grateful and sad and ready to face the world on her own. I had no idea that the person I wanted to thank was probably sitting in our kitchen at that very moment, crying happy tears because their daughter was finally ready to fly. Now I'm back at that dinner table where this whole story started. The silence is crushing. Dad looks like he's been caught stealing candy from a store. Mom's hands are shaking as she reaches for her water glass. The fancy plates with the blue flowers suddenly make sense. Mom knew this dinner was going to be special. She knew Dad was going to ask that question, and she knew everything was about to change. "What money, Dad?" I ask again, my voice barely a whisper. He looks at Mom with those wide, panicked eyes. They're having one of those married people conversations, without words, the kind where they decide important things just by looking at each other. I can see them making a choice. Keep lying or tell the truth. Protect the secret or let it all come out. The grandfather clock in the hallway ticks so loud it sounds like thunder. The pasta sauce is still bubbling on the stove. Everything feels frozen except for my heart, which is beating so hard I can hear it in my ears. Finally, Mom takes a deep breath. Her eyes are already filling with tears. "Mia," she says, and her voice sounds different than it ever has before. Scared and sad and proud, all at the same time. "We need to tell you something." The room starts spinning around me. All those envelopes, all those notes, all that mysterious kindness. It was them. It was my parents. I know it before they even say it. The pieces are falling into place so fast my brain can barely keep up. The handwriting. The perfect timing. The way they always knew exactly when the envelopes arrived. "The money," Dad says softly, like he's confessing to a crime. "It was from us." I stare at them across the table. My mouth is hanging open, but no words come out. 2 years of mystery solved in one sentence. 2 years of feeling grateful to a stranger, when I should have been grateful to the two people sitting right in front of me. You mean, I finally managed to whisper, the envelopes, the notes, all of it? Mom nods, and tears start falling down her cheeks. Every single one. The world tilts sideways. Everything I thought I knew about the last 2 years is wrong. My guardian angel wasn't a mysterious stranger who happened to care about me. It was Mom and Dad, the people who had been taking care of me since before I was born. But why didn't you just give it to me directly? I ask, because I need to understand everything. Why the secret? Dad's voice breaks a little when he answers. Because we knew you'd say no. You're too proud, too independent. You would have insisted you could handle everything yourself. You would have argued with us, Mom adds, wiping her eyes with her napkin. You would have said you didn't need help. They're right. I would have said no. I would have fought them on it. I would have gotten a third job or eaten nothing but ramen for months before I let them sacrifice for me. And you could have handled it, Dad continues quickly. You're strong enough. You've always been strong enough. But we wanted to help. We needed to help. You're our daughter. Our daughter. 2 words that explain everything. I think about all the nights I spent wondering who my guardian angel was. All the time I spent trying to figure out who cared about me that much. All the gratitude I felt toward a mysterious stranger. The stranger was Dad, coming home exhausted from the factory and still finding time to write me encouraging notes. The stranger was Mom, working double shifts at the diner and using the extra money to make sure I could buy textbooks. They weren't strangers at all. They were the most familiar people in my world, loving me the only way they thought I'd let them. The handwriting, I say suddenly, remembering that day in the kitchen, when I almost figured it out. I almost knew, that day at Thanksgiving. Mom lets out a shaky laugh. I was so scared when you started looking at that grocery list. I threw it away so fast. And you both acted so normal whenever I talked about the envelopes. We're better actors than we thought, Dad says, trying to smile through his tears. I look at these 2 people who raised me, who sacrificed for me, who loved me so much they worked themselves to exhaustion just to help me succeed. They look smaller somehow, sitting there crying and waiting for me to react. How did I not see it? How did I miss all the signs? But then I realize something that makes my stomach drop like a stone. The last note, I say slowly, remembering the words that made me cry 3 days ago. It said you were proud of me and that I was strong enough to fly on my own. It said it was the last envelope. They both nod, watching me carefully. Were you planning to stop helping me forever? Were you going to let me struggle on my own now? Mom and Dad look at each other again, and I can see the answer in their faces before they say anything. Honey, Mom says gently, reaching across the table to touch my hand. You graduate next month. You have a job lined up. You don't need us anymore. I'll always need you, I whisper, and my voice sounds like a little kid's. Not financially, Dad says. And that's good. That means we did our job right. The weight of their love, their sacrifice, their faith in me, it's almost too much to handle. For 2 years, they worked themselves to the bone to give me independence. And now that I'm strong enough to stand on my own, they were going to step back and let me fly. Even their ending was perfect. Even their goodbye was an act of love. I start crying then, really crying. Not sad tears, but overwhelmed tears. Grateful tears. Angry tears too, because how could I have been so blind? I'm sorry, I sob. I'm so sorry I didn't figure it out. I'm sorry you had to work so hard. I'm sorry I thanked strangers instead of you. No, Mom says firmly, squeezing my hand. Don't apologize. This is what parents do. This is what love looks like. But I need to understand everything now. The whole truth. I can't stop the questions from pouring out of me. How? I ask, looking back and forth between them. How did you afford to help me? I know money's been tight for our family. Dad, you're always worried about bills. Mom, you clip coupons and buy the store brand everything. Mom and Dad look at each other again, and I see something pass between them. Another secret, maybe an even bigger one. Mom, I say, my voice getting stronger, how did you afford it? She takes a shaky breath, like she's about to confess something terrible. I picked up extra shifts at the diner, weekend doubles, late nights when you called and said you needed something. My chest feels tight, but when? I thought you only worked 3 days a week. I started working 5 days, sometimes 6. Her voice is quiet, ashamed almost. And your dad? I turn to look at Dad, who's staring down at his plate like he can't meet my eyes. I took a second job, he says quietly, stocking shelves at the grocery store on Miller Street, after my regular shifts at the factory. My world stops spinning. What do you mean, after your shifts? Dad, you work 8 hours a day. When did you have time for another job? Evenings, he says, still not looking at me. 10 at night until 2 in the morning. 4 nights a week. And weekends, Mom adds. Early mornings before you woke up when you came home to visit. I'm starting to understand the full picture, and it's breaking my heart into a million pieces. That's why you were always so tired. That's why I barely saw you some weeks. Dad finally looks up at me, and his eyes are red. We wanted to make sure you could focus on school. We didn't want you to worry about money, or feel like you had to quit college and get a job. But I had a job, I protest, my voice getting louder. At the campus bookstore. That was for spending money, Mom says gently. For you to feel independent. The real expenses, rent, food, car repairs, textbooks, we wanted to handle those. I think about all the times I came home and found them asleep on the couch, exhausted from working. I think about all the dinners where they'd insist they weren't hungry, telling me to eat the last piece of chicken or the biggest portion of pasta. They were literally working themselves to death to take care of me. And I never even knew. How long? I whisper. How long have you been working extra jobs? Since you started college, Dad says. 2.5 years. 2.5 years. Over 1,000 days of Mom working double shifts until her feet hurt so bad she could barely walk. Over 1,000 nights of Dad stocking shelves until 2 in the morning, then getting up at 6 to go to the factory. Also, I could focus on studying instead of worrying about money. Why didn't you tell me, I ask? And now I'm angry. Not at them, but at myself. Why didn't I notice? Because we didn't want you to notice, Mom says. We wanted you to feel like everything was okay. We wanted you to believe that somehow, magically, things would work out. We wanted you to have the college experience we never got, Dad adds. We wanted you to worry about grades and friendships and figuring out who you wanted to be, not about whether you could afford to eat. I remember all those phone calls home where I'd complain about small things. A professor who gave too much homework, a roommate who was messy, drama with my friends. While I was worrying about those little problems, my parents were working themselves to exhaustion to make sure I didn't have to worry about the big ones. The notes, I say, remembering all those beautiful messages. How did you have time to write them? When were you even home? Mom smiles through her tears. I'd write them during my breaks, at the diner. Sometimes I'd sit in the parking lot after my shift and think about what you needed to hear. And I'd write mine at the grocery store, Dad says, during my lunch breaks at the factory or in the car before my night shift started. They'd been crafting those perfect, loving messages while exhausted and probably hungry and worried about their own bills. They'd been thinking about my happiness while sacrificing their own comfort. The money for the envelopes, I realized suddenly. That was your tip money, wasn't it, Mom? And Dad, that was your grocery store paycheck. They both nod. We didn't need much, Mom says quickly. We had the house. We had each other. You were the one building a future. But you missed so many dinners together. So many evenings. You gave up your time, your rest. We gave up nothing important, Dad interrupts. The most important thing to us was knowing you were okay. Knowing you could succeed without drowning in debt or stress. I think about all the nights I felt so grateful to my mysterious guardian angel. All the times I told my friends how lucky I was to have someone looking out for me. I was lucky, but not because of some stranger's kindness. I was lucky because I had parents who loved me enough to work 4 jobs between them. Parents who cared more about my future than their own comfort. Parents who would rather collapse from exhaustion than watch their daughter struggle. You must have been so tired, I whisper. All the time. Tired is temporary, Mom says. But watching you graduate, seeing you confident and successful, that lasts forever. Besides, Dad adds with a weak smile, what else were we going to do with our time? Watch TV? Sleep? He's trying to make a joke, but I can see the truth in his face. They'd given up everything: rest, relaxation, time together, probably their health, just to slip envelopes under my door. I should have known, I say. I should have figured it out. We didn't want you to figure it out, Mom says. We wanted you to focus on being young and learning and becoming the amazing person you are. But I could have helped. I could have gotten more jobs, taken out loans, and we could have let you, Dad says. But we didn't want to. This was our choice, our gift to you. I look at these two people who sacrificed everything for me, and I finally understand what love really looks like. It's not just saying the words or giving hugs. It's working until your body aches, so your child can chase their dreams. It's giving up your own comfort to make sure someone else feels secure. It's being someone's guardian angel, even if they never know your name. I can't stop crying now. The tears are coming so fast I can barely breathe. Not sad tears, but overwhelmed tears, grateful tears. Angry tears too, because how could I have been so blind to everything they were doing for me? I'm sorry, I sobbed, my whole body shaking. I'm so sorry I didn't figure it out. I'm sorry you had to work so hard. I'm sorry I thanked strangers when it was you the whole time. You deserved the credit. You deserved all the thanks. No, Mom says, getting up from her chair and coming around the table to hug me. Don't apologize. Don't you dare apologize for any of this. Dad pushes back his chair too, and suddenly both my parents are wrapping their arms around me while I cry into their shoulders. This is what parents do, Mom whispers into my hair. This is what love looks like. We don't do it for credit or thanks. We do it because you're our daughter and we'd do anything to help you succeed. But I thanked strangers. I cry. I told everyone about my guardian angel, and it was you the whole time. Dad wipes his eyes with his napkin. His voice is thick when he speaks. Nia, seeing you succeed was thanks enough. Watching you graduate next month, seeing you confident and happy and ready to take on the world, that was our reward. But the notes, I say, remembering all those perfect messages that got me through my hardest days. They were so beautiful. How did you know exactly what to say? Mom sits back down and takes my hands in hers. Because we know you. We've known you since before you were born. We know when you're stressed, when you're scared, when you need encouragement. We've been watching you grow up for 20 years, Dad adds, his voice gentle. We know your favorite cookies, your worst fears, and your biggest dreams. We know what makes you smile and what keeps you up at night. I think about every note, every perfectly timed envelope, every moment when I felt so grateful to my mysterious helper. It was never mysterious at all. It was the most natural thing in the world. Parents taking care of their child. The handwriting, I say suddenly, wiping my nose. I almost figured it out that day in the kitchen when I saw your grocery list, Mom. Mom laughs through her tears. I was so scared when you started staring at that paper. I threw it away so fast my hands were shaking. And you both acted so normal whenever I talked about the envelopes. You never looked surprised or curious. We're better actors than we thought, Dad says, with a weak smile. Though there were times when you described the notes to us, and I'd want to cry because I remembered writing them. Like which ones? I ask. Dad's voice gets soft. The one about taking care of your car. I wrote that one sitting in the grocery store parking lot at midnight, thinking about how much I wanted to protect you from everything. And the note about vegetables being important, Mom adds. I wrote that during my dinner break, eating a sad sandwich, and wishing I could cook for you every night. Every note had a story. Every envelope represented them thinking about me while they were tired and overworked and probably hungry. I look at these two people who raised me, who sacrificed for me, who loved me so much they worked themselves to exhaustion just to help me succeed. How did I get so lucky to have parents like this? But then I realize something that makes my stomach twist. The last note, I say slowly, remembering the goodbye message that came 3 days ago. It said you were proud of me and that I was strong enough to fly on my own. It said it was the last envelope because I didn't need you anymore. They both nod, watching me carefully. Were you really going to stop helping me forever? Were you going to let me struggle completely on my own from now on? Mom and Dad exchange another look, and I can see the answer in their faces. Honey, Mom says gently, you graduate next month. You have a good job lined up at the marketing firm. You don't need us to slip money under your door anymore. I'll always need you, I whisper, my voice breaking. Not financially, Dad says. And that's good. That's what we wanted. That means we did our job right. But what if something happens? What if I can't afford something important? Then you'll call us, Mom says simply, and we'll help you the normal way as a family. No more secrets, no more mystery envelopes. The weight of their love, their sacrifice, their faith in me, it's almost too much to bear. For 2 years, they worked themselves to the bone to give me independence. And now that I'm strong enough to stand on my own, they were going to step back and let me fly. Even their ending was perfect. Even their goodbye was an act of love. I wish I could pay you back, I finally say, my voice small. You already have, Mom tells me, squeezing my hands. Every good grade, every phone call home, every time you smiled when you found an envelope, that was payment enough. Every time you called us excited about something you learned, or told us about a new friend, or shared your dreams with us, Dad adds. That's what made all the extra work worth it. Besides, he continues with a grin, wait until you have kids someday. Then you'll understand completely. You'll do the same thing for them that we did for you. The thought makes me cry, even harder. Someday, I might love someone so much that I'd work double shifts just to help them succeed. Someday, I might be the guardian angel slipping envelopes under doors, writing encouraging notes during my lunch breaks. I hope I can love my kids the way you love me, I say. You will, Mom says with certainty, because that's what love does. It multiplies. It passes down from parent to child, generation after generation. I think about all the ways they've shown me love over the years. Not just the envelopes, but everything. The way Dad taught me to ride a bike, running beside me until I was ready to go on my own. The way Mom stayed up with me when I was sick, bringing me soup and checking my fever every hour. The envelopes were just the latest way they found to take care of me. They've been my guardian angels my whole life, in big ways and small ways, in obvious ways and secret ways. From now on, I tell them, my voice getting stronger, no more secrets. If I need help, I'll ask. And if you need help, you better ask me too. Deal, Dad says, squeezing my hand. Deal, Mom agrees. We sit there for a while, holding hands around our old wooden table. The spaghetti is probably cold by now, but none of us care. We're too busy being amazed by love, by sacrifice, by the incredible things parents will do for their children. I know the truth now. My guardian angels weren't mysterious strangers who happened to care about me. They were the 2 people who loved me before I even existed, who worked themselves to exhaustion to give me a better life, who asked for nothing in return except my happiness. They were my parents. They were always my parents. And that's the most beautiful mystery of all. We sit there crying together, the 3 of us around our old wooden table. The spaghetti is getting cold, and the sauce has probably formed a skin on top by now, but none of us care. We're too busy holding hands and trying to find words big enough for this moment. The fancy plates with the blue flowers don't seem fancy anymore. They just seem like Mom being Mom, trying to make everything special because she knew this night would change everything. I wish I could pay you back, I finally say, even though I know I've said it before. I wish I could work extra jobs to give you money the way you gave me money. You already have paid us back, Mom tells me, her voice soft but certain. Every good grade, every phone call home, every time you smiled when you found an envelope, that was payment enough. Every time you called us excited about a test you passed or a paper you wrote, Dad adds. Every time you told us about making a new friend or learning something amazing, that's what made all the extra work worth it. I think about all those phone calls over the past 2 years. All the times I called home, bursting with excitement about some small victory at school. I thought I was just sharing my day with my parents. I didn't know I was giving them the exact payment they wanted, proof that their sacrifice was working. Besides, Dad continues with a grin that makes him look younger. Wait until you have kids someday. Then you'll understand completely. You'll do the same thing for them that we did for you. The thought makes me cry all over again, but happy tears this time. Someday, I might love someone so much that I'd work double shifts just to help them succeed. Someday, I might be the guardian angel slipping envelopes under doors, writing encouraging notes during my lunch breaks, watching from the shadows as my child grows strong and independent. I hope I can love my kids the way you love me, I whisper. You will, Mom says with complete confidence. Because that's how love works. It gets passed down from parent to child, generation after generation. Your grandmother did it for me. I do it for you. And someday you'll do it for your children. I never thought about it that way before. Love as something that travels through families like a river, flowing from one generation to the next. My parents learned how to love by being loved, and someday I'll teach my children the same way. I have something to show you, I say suddenly, remembering the box under my bed back at school. Well, I don't have it here, but I saved something. What? Mom asks, wiping her eyes with her napkin. All the notes, every single one. I kept them in a special box. And sometimes when I was having a really hard day, I'd take them out and read them again. Mom gasps, her hand flying to her mouth. You kept them all? Every single one, I say. They meant everything to me. They still do. I can see Dad's eyes filling with tears again. We had no idea you were saving them. They were like little hugs made out of words, I explain. They made me feel less alone, like someone was watching over me and really cared about my happiness. Someone was watching over you, Mom says softly. We both were. Every day, every phone call, every time you mentioned something you needed or something that was worrying you. When I get back to school tomorrow, I want to bring that box home, I tell them. I want us to read them together. I want to hear the stories behind each one. I'd like that, Dad says, his voice thick with emotion. I remember writing some of them, but I want to remember all of them. We reheat the spaghetti in the microwave and finish our dinner. But everything feels different now. The silence isn't uncomfortable anymore. It's peaceful. We're not hiding anything from each other. There are no more secrets sitting between us like invisible walls. This sauce is really good, Dad, I say, and he beams like I've given him the greatest compliment in the world. It's the same recipe I always use, he says. I know, but somehow it tastes better tonight. Everything tastes better when you're not carrying around questions you don't know how to ask. Everything feels lighter when the people you love most aren't working extra jobs in secret just to take care of you. Are you going to quit the extra jobs now? I ask as we clear the dishes together. Mom and Dad look at each other, having one of their silent conversations again. We already did, Mom admits. Last week, after we sent the final envelope, I went back to my regular 3 days at the diner. And I gave notice at the grocery store, Dad says. My last shift was yesterday. So you're both just working your regular jobs now? Just the regular jobs, Dad confirms. And it feels strange, having so much free time. I forgot what it was like to watch a whole TV show without falling asleep. What are you going to do with all that extra time? I ask. Spend it together, Mom says, taking Dad's hand. We missed a lot of evenings over the past 2 years. A lot of dinners and conversations and just being together. I realized they didn't just sacrifice sleep and comfort for me. They sacrificed time with each other. Date nights and lazy Sunday mornings, and all the little moments that make a marriage strong. I'm sorry you missed so much time together, I say. Don't be sorry, Dad says firmly. We chose to do it, and we'd choose it again. But now we get the best of both worlds. You're going to be successful and independent. And we get to go back to being a regular married couple. Not completely regular, Mom says with a smile. We'll always be your parents first. Speaking of which, Dad adds, you should probably call us more often once you graduate and start your new job. We're going to have withdrawal symptoms from not hearing about your daily life. I promise to call you every Sunday, I tell them. And not just when I need something. Just to talk. We'd like that, Mom says. As we finish cleaning up the kitchen, I keep looking at my parents and seeing them differently. They're not just Mom and Dad anymore. They're people who worked themselves to exhaustion for 2.5 years because they loved me that much. They're people who wrote encouraging notes during their lunch breaks and thought about my happiness while stocking shelves at midnight. They're heroes disguised as ordinary parents. Thank you, I tell them as we put away the last of the dishes. For everything, for the envelopes, for the notes, for working so hard, for loving me enough to let me think it was magic. Thank you for being worth it, Dad says, pulling me into a hug. Thank you for becoming the amazing person we always knew you'd become, Mom adds. Joining our hug, we stand there in our little kitchen, the three of us holding each other tight. The mystery is solved. but the love story is just getting started. Now that I know the truth, I can love them back the way they've always loved me, completely, selflessly, and without keeping score. The question that started this whole conversation, has the money been helping? Seems like it happened years ago instead of just an hour ago. But I'm glad Dad asked it. I'm glad the secret came out. Because now I know that love doesn't always announce itself with fanfare and applause. Sometimes it works quietly in the background, slipping envelopes under doors and working extra shifts and writing notes that say exactly what you need to hear. Sometimes the most powerful love is the kind you don't even notice until someone accidentally lets it slip at a family dinner. The circle is complete now. I know who my guardian angels are, and they know how much their love meant to me. We don't need mysteries anymore. We just need each other. What an incredible story about hidden love and family sacrifice, right? Stories like this remind us that the greatest acts of kindness often happen in secret, from the people closest to us. I'd love to know where you're listening from. Drop a comment and tell me your city or country. If this story touched your heart like it did mine, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us share more stories about love, kindness, and the amazing things families do for each other. And speaking of heartwarming stories, there's another incredible tale waiting for you right on your screen. Click on that video appearing now. I promise it will move you just as much as Mia's story did. Until next time, remember to look for the guardian angels in your own life. Sometimes they're closer than you think.